Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG Podcast, episode number 133 of the show. I'm Ramon Mejia, and I'm here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course, author interviews. This week on the show, I have some great new releases for you, 7 new ones in fact. That includes The Dead Gods, Land of Dreams, book number 2. Also, we're reviewing Galactic Badlands, a LitRPG space western. After that, it'll be Guild Masters, a LitRPG adventure, Tower of Power, book number 1. Then it's going to be A Clan's Honor, a LitRPG adventure, Rogue Realms, book number 1. Then it's going to be Nightmare Keep, Euphoria Online, book number 2, and Tales and Schemes, L. Then after that, it's going to be the last one, would be A Demon Lord's Virtual Magic Life, tutorial zone. So there you go. So 7 new LitRPG reviews for you folks. Before we get in that, we normally go into LitRPG news, but I'll play the music for you anyways. No LitRPG news this week, so there you go. Just happen to like the music so much. So there's not much happening nationally or big news stories, I guess. So we're just going to go right into stories that are out now, though. This includes a song Mistress, a LitRPG Journey Uniworld Online Trilogy, book number 2 in that particular series by Jonathan Brooks. Also out now is Traveler Zone, the Revelation Chronicles, book number 2 now. Don't judge this one too harshly by its cover. The cover art for this particular series has not been great. It's very artistic, but I actually gave the first book a good review. Having had a chance to quite finish the second one, which is why it's not on this particular show. It'll be on next week's show, but I've been enjoying it so far. But again, the cover art is not particularly descriptive of what's inside the story, unfortunately. But there's a strong female characters in an MMO. Some stuff there, so there we go. But it's out now. New LitRPG audiobooks that are out now. Cities of Chains and Apocalypse LitRPG, The System Apocalypse, book number 4 is out as an audiobook. Book number 5 is actually out currently as an ebook. An ebook, my friends, not an audiobook. It's out as an ebook. Book number 4 is out as an audiobook. Book number 5 just came out as an ebook. Hopefully we'll get to review it next week. Also out as an audiobook is Fortress of Shadows, LitRPG and Game Mode Adventure Stonehaven League Series, book number 2 by Carrie Summers. So narrated by Sambu Theater, including Jeff Hayes and Annie Ellicott. So good stuff all around there. Some stuff that's going to come in the near future. Again, this is a whole list of stuff that I know is coming out as far as I know. Again, authors, if you have stuff that you know that's going to be out in the near future, a couple of weeks, couple of months is fine. Let us know. Send us email at feedback@geekbitespodcast.com, with your cover art and your description and when it's coming out. We'll add it to this list. If you're a LitRPG title, make sure it actually is LitRPG though. So on September the 14th, The Revived, an MMORPG, an LitRPG online adventure, Second Age of Retha, book number 3. That'll be out on September the 14th, so only a few days from now. As a matter of fact, when most people actually watch this particular podcast, it might already be out. We won't be reviewing it, but book 2 is a little... Never mind, it was a thing. So, but we won't be reviewing. But if you're a fan of that series, it'll be out. September the 15th is going to be the first collaborative effort by Blaze Corvin, who's the author of the Delvers LOC series, and Secret of Nora, and also the Secret of the Old Ones series that he has. Most people probably know him best from Delvers. But he'll be actually doing a co-authoring story with Outspan Foster for their first collaboration called The First Song, book number 1, which should be out on September the 15th. So that'll be this upcoming, a couple days from now. It's supposed to be like apocalyptic, but also actually, LitRPG stuff is still there. I haven't had a chance to read it personally, but, looking forward to seeing something else from that author, whose stuff I enjoy. On September the 15th as well, it's going to be Uberian Passage, a LitRPG mystery. I don't know anything about this. I don't know the author. I'm hoping it's actually going to be a LitRPG. That's the best I can hope for when you see new things. September the 24th, Game Changer, Reality Benders, book number 3. That one I know is LitRPG from a nice Russian author. I've really enjoyed the series, and I'm hoping that the third book is as good as the first two. September 26th, it'll be Free Haven Online, Lady Thunder, Lowered into Hades, book number 2. September 28th, Couch Potato Chaos. On this one is new to the list. On October the 1st, The Arena's Call, which is going to be Adventures on Brad, book number 4. The author has mentioned that this title won't be on Kindle Unlimited. The author's had some issues with Amazon cutting Kindle Unlimited reads, which has been reducing his income and essentially a bunch of other more Amazon issues have been happening. So the author's actually not putting this one on Kindle Unlimited. So there you go. Also out on October the 8th is going to be Kingdom of the Dead and NPC's Path, book number 2. New to the list, October the 16th, the 11th book in the Feywild series is going to be out, called The Blades of the Borderlands. Also new to the list, November the 1st, 2018, Neverfall, Mark of the Hero, book number 1. I don't know this author as well. It's a new author, with a new title. We'll have to see if it's actually LitRPG. But it'll be out on November the 1st. On November the 19th, it'll be the second book in the book Bards of Barlunis series, which is a collaborative effort between Vasily Mahenko and another author, E. Dmitrieva. It'll be out on November 19th, again, called The Song of Shadow. On December the 10th, another new addition to the list, it'll be Hero Level Up, book number 2. The LitRPG series. I think that might be anyways, Hero Level Up, book number 2. So there we go. I actually enjoy the first one quite a bit, actually. And last but not least, November 21st, Free Haven Online, Winter Dungeon Line, book number 3. There we go. On to new releases and reviews. And in new releases and reviews, we're going to begin with Dead Gods, Land of Dreams, book number 2 by Morgan Cole. It is 286 pages, $2.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. John is enslaved, taken by the Valda, dark elves, and forced to fight for them with other slaves in dark dungeons on a hideously dangerous jungle island. The island is a mystery, a 2-kilometer-high stone tower of ancient dwarven make in the center. Overgrown with jungle, it's infested with demonic creatures and filled with the ruins of dwarven facilities. With his new friends and fellow slaves, he must fight and delve into the island's secrets. So there you go. The author does note that this is a LitRPG novel. There are no harems, though, and there's no sex. So for some reason, he feels like he has to qualify that. Full disclosure, I received an advance copy for review. I purchased the novel when it became available. Basically, the author just sent me a copy saying, "Oh, this is going to be out today. Would you like to read it?" And I was like, "Thanks." And then I just bought it as soon as it actually came out. Overall, I have to say, book 1 I actually enjoyed, but there were several issues that I couldn't ignore, and so it got a 6 out of 10 for me. Book 2, the writing is improved. Most of the things that I had issues with were even actually already improved by the end of book 1. It's just that a good portion of book number 1, the first half, had so many issues I couldn't ignore it. And all that's been fixed, or I should say most of that's been fixed. I saw technical writing issues. So automatically, I already know I was going to like this one and give it a better score than I did book 1. There's good action, there's adventure, there's good dialogue, good banter, and some improved world building in the story. So overall, book 2 is definitely an improvement over book 1. So if you read book 1 and you liked it, but you had maybe issues like I did, you might actually like book 2 a bit more. The game mechanics and the story remain the same as they were in book 1, and they're still essentially the same issues. I mean, you wouldn't expect the game mechanics to change too much. There is still progression and constant progression and levels and stats and improvements, magic abilities and spells, and there we go. All that stuff is there in this world, but there's still that same sort of, at least for me, a disconnect between sometimes what is written in the character sheet and what is actually described during combat. And during some of the action scenes and some of the dialogue, it sometimes feels like this is more of a fantasy world with a healthy dose of RPG-ness, but it's mostly a fantasy concept. And that's mostly again because of, even though the main character progresses on his character sheets, gains stats, increases his powers, that kind of stuff. There's just for me just a quantifiable disconnection between that and what you see in actual combat. In actual combat, there are no levels for monsters. There's no damage notifications. There's no health pools, stamina pools, mana pools. So there's no numerical references to show that there's this growth and change. And for some reason, just like the way the authors described it, sometimes you just don't feel like that. Oh, you don't feel like he just leveled up. You don't feel like he's just improved himself for some degree or another. And that's just like that was an issue of book 1. It's carried in book 2. It is what it is. That's probably the biggest complaint I have about the story. But again, there's a lot of other good things in the novel. The in-game storyline for this particular portion of the series, book 2 is essentially a big old long dungeon crawl. At the end of book 1, this isn't spoilery. This is the author talked about this in the novel description. The main character is kidnapped by dark elves, and he's sent on a pirate ship to an island where they've enslaved him, and so they're going to make him like essentially clear a dungeon with a bunch of other like slaves. There's some other contextual storylines in there that sort of mollify the concept of slavery here for these characters, but essentially again it's just a long dungeon crawl to clear out this dwarven tower. And there are 9 sponsors to beat. There's some good dungeon puzzles, and there are like some very interesting levels, including a water level. And the author has a very good dose of like self-depreciation. And then he makes fun of his own story and that he included a water level, like a lot of MMOs and video games have, and he makes jokes about it. And one of the things I always pick up with the story that I enjoy is kind of like that gamer humor. And that's definitely included in the story. And it's continued on here, so it's definitely good. In the real life section of the storyline, in book 1, the big focus was the main character is losing his job to automated robots in construction, and all the jobs in the world have been taken over by robots essentially. And the main character is no different, so he's lost his job and he has to figure out some way to make money, and he does it with this virtual game. And that's kind of the big real life storyline in book 1. In book 2, that still exists. It's just lessened a bit, and it focuses more on his relationship with his parents, his mom and his dad. His dad is in a coma, and that is, there's this thing carried from book 1, like where this big emotional thing, and part of book 2 is thankfully an expansion of that real life storyline, which I really did enjoy, like that beginning of a reconciliation using virtual reality technology. I actually like that particular use of the tech in the real life storyline as well. I think in situation I actually would have liked to have seen more of it described, more of the point of view from maybe the dad and how he's experiencing virtuality, even though he's kind of in a coma. I think it would have been like a really interesting way of expanding the technological aspects of this particular story. It doesn't exist, unfortunately. There's a little bit of it, but maybe something for book 3. But again, it's good stuff, good stories. Overall, this is a good time. If you like a dungeon crawl, if you're expecting something like else, you might be disappointed, but if you want to go into this novel understanding it's essentially a dungeon crawl, good action, adventure, good characters, there's a pretty good real life storyline, I think you're going to enjoy it. I had a good time with it. Gets a score of 7.2 out of 10 for me, which is definitely an improvement for book 1. So this one gets a good score of a 7.2 out of 10 for Dead Gods, Land of Dreams, book number 2. So there you go. Okay. Now, next one is going to be Galactic Badlands, a LitRPG space adventure by Zachariah Dracolius. And I'm pretty sure I said the author's last name before. Yeah, okay. So Zachariah Dracolius for book number 2, the Galactic Badlands. It is 209 pages, $3.99, all available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. There are cowboy boots on his feet, pop-up hints appearing in his vision, and, oh yeah, there's a mariachi band in his head. The world's not going to slow down and let him catch up, though. No, it's going to throw a chrome hover car at him and hope he gets the picture. Charles isn't what you'd call inept, though, and before long he's proving himself as a quick shooter and a fast learner, and more than willing to immerse himself in this pseudo-digital reality full of cruel crime lords, dangerous wild animals, and all manner of fun allies in this, the first novel of the Galactic Badlands saga. So there you go. This is essentially a slice of life novel. The main character finds himself in this custom afterlife where he can't die or he's going to go to hell. So like anyone else would, obviously, he goes on life-threatening adventures as a sci-fi cowboy, collecting bounties, herding cattle, and building a team of like rogue adventurers and followers. And that's all there really is to this. It's really just a string of adventures and some dialogue, and lots of dialogue, to be honest. Unfortunately, the adventures aren't that good, and there's little direction to the story. A lot of the story is just the main character kind of wandering around, kind of just stumbling on to like people he's going to add to his team at some point. The game mechanics are very minimal, and while the main character levels up and he chooses new abilities and skills, it makes it, you know, technically lit RPG. The RPG parts are very light, and relative to the page count, they're not really a big part of the story. So for me, overall, there are some neat characters in the story. I think it's interesting that the main character turns cyborg, which is like on the cover art, so it's not a spoiler. It's just the story overall just wasn't particularly entertaining for me. So it gets a score of 5 out of 10 for me. That's Galactic Badlands, a lit RPG space western with a score of 5 out of 10. I'll probably give book 2 a chance, but if that one isn't entertaining as well, I'll probably drop the series. But there you go. Okay, on to number 3. It's going to be Guildmasters, a lit RPG adventure, Tower of Power, book number 1 by Ivan Cowell. It is 286 pages, $3.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. A second chance at life on a new world. Morgan used to be a pretty normal guy. He went to college by day and played online games by night, leading his guild into new conquest. Until he got hit by a car and a dude wearing a wetsuit appeared in front of him. The man offered him a new chance at life in a world that he had created, a world with similar rules to the games that Morgan loved to play. There is the promise of great reward and power, he says, if Morgan manages to complete the Tower of Power. Stupid name, I know. Morgan didn't usually trust strangers who seemed to have a god complex, but he was in a pinch. There's a crazy-looking dude saying that he is technically not a god on one end of the tunnel, and a blinding light on the other end, and he was really not digging the light. So he accepted the offer from the surfer god not god. Getting dropped into a strange new world with no idea what the rules are is something that Morgan was a fan of. And in this strange world, it seemed like everything is out to eat his face. It was a good thing, then, that he stumbled on two half-elf twins willing to help him get the hang of this strange new world. Now all he needs to do is survive long enough to reach this tower. Okay, so that's the author description. Honestly, when I read the beginning of the story, I was a little skeptical of if it was going to pan out or not for me. It kind of has this Delver LOC premise of a man being transported to a world with RPG mechanics to aid in some experimental testing, which sounded super familiar. And I was like, but the novel proves to be sort of original and definitely entertaining. I say sort of because every author who's ever written anything in the entire world is inspired by others. And I can actually see the influences from multiple popular literary series in this novel. There's the premise from Delver's LOC. There's a hot redheaded companion and dungeon diving. And then there's town building and an imminent raid aspect that I recognize from the Greystone Chronicles. However, the author again pulls these things together and combines them with a unique sense of humor, a few original game mechanics, and an unusual clash with the MC to make this kind of a newish story, but it's also going to feel very familiar, especially if you read those other series. You'd be like, oh, I think I read something like this before. And I think those other series probably do their specializations a little bit better. But again, every author, including myself, takes the things we bring in, the things we read, and we try to make them our own. You know, even if we're inspired, we write original stuff, and this is definitely original. I'm not saying it's copying in any way, shape, or form, but you can definitely see the influences of other popular titles. The game mechanics and the story are standard-ish D&D stuff. There is the inclusion of multi-classing, though, and an inherent need to kill monsters and consume a special crystal they drop to extend the adventurer's or the aspect's life. This actually adds a nice little bit of variety and keeps the reader interested in how the classes develop. And this particular aspect of like having to essentially swallow something from like monster kills really does push the adventurers in this story to not be lazy, and pushes them to kill and continue to kill and grow in advance. Otherwise they just die. On the story side, it's essentially pretty simple. Oh, I forgot. There's also lots of information the author provides about the game aspects. This is a pretty crunchy story, actually, and the information provided about classes and skills and game mechanic stuff is really thorough. So if you like crunchy stories with lots of numbers, I should say, this is probably going to be something you like. On the story side, it's a very simple story. It's a transport to a fantasy game world, then goes into a dungeon dive story, which then moves into a kingdom building story. And again, it's good action, adventure, RPG progress, and town building. Minor gripes about the story for me would include a semi-forced relationship that feels like it's going to turn into a harem in book number 2. There is no sex. Well, there is sex, but it's faded black in the story. And there's a very unique sense of humor in this story that is not going to land with everybody. Like if you heard me read the novel description, there's actually a recurring joke in that description that you might not have caught because it's very specific. And again, the humor is either going to land with you or it's not. It didn't really land for me, unfortunately, which is why it gets a score on the lower end of the good spectrum. It's just, it does what it is. It's always one of those things with humor. Additionally, one of the things that kind of bothered me was the fact that in the middle of the story, for some real reason, the main character just turns into this whiny, petulant child. And it really just seemed out of place, and it's just like this weird kind of twist with the main character. The main character even starts like randomly yelling when he doesn't get his way and doesn't get revenge against someone that wronged him. And I kind of understand the feeling of like, oh, I want to get back at this person, but like the extent to where it went, I'm not sure if the author was trying to tell a joke or making fun of like online gaming behavior, if that was the intent, but it felt odd and was definitely off-putting, but thankfully it's isolated to that section. But again, one of those things that stands as being, that's either a joke or this is just weird. Again, it's one of those things. Overall, I think the story is going to feel very familiar to a lot of LitRPG readers, but it's still very entertaining and it's very crunchy. So that's always good for the people who like that. That I think some people are going to enjoy. So for me, it gets a score of 7.3 out of 10. That's Guildmaster, a LitRPG Adventure Tower of Power, book number 1, with a score of 7.3 out of 10. So there you go. Okay. On to our next review, A Clan's Honor, a LitRPG Adventure, Rogue Realms, book number 1, written by Riley Mercer. It is 341 pages, $3.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. To break free, you'll need to break the game. In the virtual realm of Honoris, Ronan Ironclad is a paladin forced to fight for his rural world coalition. Drafted players are constantly summoned to battle in-game to resolve political disputes. This was meant as a safe way for the governments to settle their differences, but it's turned into a way to control the populace. The wonder and magical beauty of Honoris has been consumed with pointless warring, destroying the true lore of the game. Everything changes when Ronan joins a top-level clan that fights to return Honoris to the epic fantasy game that it was meant to unify the world. Abandoning his coalition puts his rural world life in danger, but what he learns about the game and his clan exposes him to something much greater. So there we go. This story didn't really work for me. There are a lot of things in the story, including the premise and a lot of the plot points and some of the twists that just don't make sense. I feel like there are some major plot holes in the story that are really big. I think in the written version of the review I said, oh, there are plot holes large enough to drive a truck through, which is probably exaggerating a little bit, but there are some really big points that just didn't make sense to me, which stopped me from enjoying this. On the plus side, things that I really enjoyed, the combat scenes are well written. There's lots of nods to MMOs of the past, so there's a good sense of humor. But again, the fundamental premise of the story just doesn't make sense to me. I almost feel like this is a bad guy story, but it's not explicit, or it's like maybe that's something it's going to turn into, but I'll get into that in a minute. The premise of the story essentially is that Ronan, the main character, he's recruited by the First Clan who want to return the game they all play to its original purpose, which is fun and sharing of ideas. How is the game currently used? It's used to solve global conflicts without real-life war, and instead of virtual wars between nations and factions. I'm like, that doesn't seem bad. Why would you want to change that? Now, mind you, in the story, the author really does, he goes out of his way to kind of make this concept seem bad. He makes the whole setup sound as unappealing as possible. With mandatory drafts of like people being drafted for like 6 years or more, and financial penalties for the players who lose the battles. But even with all those like negatives there, for me, it was just like, wait, so this video game, this MMO, stops war in the entire world. So nobody's dying from war anymore. Nobody's dying from global conflicts. And the premise of the story is that the main character in this clan want to stop that. So I'm like, and it just doesn't make sense to me. Even if like these bad things exist, like why not just change the system instead of like, oh, destroying it and like making governments go to war again and where they draft real people to kill each other. I'm like, it just like, it was a thing for me. I think I just couldn't get over for myself. Additionally, there are like lots of plot twists that just didn't make sense. There were like things that are just like, oh, big plot holes for me. For example, how do these rebels stay off the entire world governance radar if they're going to be playing their game essentially? Oh, they kind of wound way into saying, oh, we have a modification of the code that hides everybody from the governments, and so much so that they can't even see you in the game. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense, because all these draftees people, including the main character, they live at the government facility, and they use the government internet, and they use the government controlled rigs. So how is the government not going to see them? That just doesn't make sense, especially when the government owns the game. They literally own the code. Like, all the governments of the world combine their money or whatever fortune to buy the video game, and so they literally control the servers that it's played on. And so it's, like I said, it just doesn't make sense. Big plot hole for me. Additionally, how does this one group plan to stop? How do they plan to change the game to revert it back to its original purpose? Oh, they're going to stop every single battle that the government plans to have between each other to settle whatever differences they have, using these spells and these abilities that have never been shown in the story before, and that have no setup in the story. It's just like, oh, magic spellish. I'm like, that doesn't really make sense for a video game story, because again, in a fantasy story, great, you can pull whatever you want to, magic. But in like a LitRPG story, part of the premise is that there's a solid code here. Like, you can't just like pull magic spells out of your butt and expect like the reader to be like, oh yeah, that's right. Why not? And that's what happens again in a story, to kind of fill in these puddles. Like, oh, how exactly would you stop the government who controls this game and then kind of take it over back from them? And then the government's response to this is also equally just like weird and a gigantic plot hole. It's like, oh, how does the government respond to this? Oh, again, they use a never described spell that's not set up again, that resets players' levels to 1. So even if like they're super high level, if they get hit by this magic spell, oh, now they're level 1 again. Or as it goes on, they unleash server-wide demon hordes from an expansion that never came out, and permadeath. And none of that's actually going to accomplish the goal that anybody wants. So there were like these huge issues with like, oh, that doesn't make sense to my brain, happening again in the story, which is again why it stopped me from really enjoying the story. Like I said, I don't want you to think that there's nothing good about the story. I really enjoy some of it. There's lots of good MMO goodness here. The actual leveling of the main character doesn't have as much impact as I would have liked, but there are good things here. The game mechanics are really familiar. But then who's played an MMO, you can tell the author has gaming experience. The story is overall well written. There are some good world building elements. There's good combat. There's good MMO and gamer humor, and there's good character description. There are good character relationships that are written in the story. It's just that the premise of the story and like the way the plot unfolds just didn't make sense to me logically, so I couldn't enjoy this story, unfortunately. But if you can ignore that, you might really enjoy this. You really might. I couldn't. So for me, it gets a score of 6 out of 10. It's not boring, so it doesn't get a 5. But I just couldn't enjoy it, so it doesn't get a 7, which is good. So it's stuck right in the middle at a 6 out of 10. That's a Clan's Honor, a LitRPG Adventure, Rogue Realms book number 1 with a score 6 out of 10. Again, if you can ignore some of those plot issues I mentioned, you might enjoy this more than I did. So there you go. Okay, on to our 5th review. It is going to be Nightmare Keep, Euphoria Online book number 2, written by Phil Tucker. And again, just if you're aware, this author has really gone out of his way to make sure that the audiobooks and the ebooks are released at the same time. So if you don't want to read this, or you're an audiobook listener, this is actually out as an audiobook right now. So if you can read it as an ebook, or you can listen to it as an audiobook. Okay. It is 265 pages, $4.99, and it is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. I've managed to survive my first week in Euphoria Online, but I couldn't have done it without my new friends, Lotharia, Falcon, and the Green Liver Goblins. But now, Lotharia has gone missing, swallowed by that nightmare keep, lost to the darkness. Everyone telling me that going after her is madness, that I don't have a chance in hell. But I'm not the kind of a guy to turn my back on my friends. Damn the odds. I'm going to find her. So there we go. That's actually a pretty decent description of what the main character's motivation in the story is. Full disclosure, I received an advance copy for review. I purchased the novel when it became available. This is actually a really good follow-up to Death March. This novel focuses on the action and adventure aspects of the story. The main character is in the game, so all the setup's already done. That's where the story starts at. It does like a little bit of a recap at the beginning, but the entire story takes place in the game because the main character is there. Now, if you don't remember what book 1 was about, essentially the main character, he's in the game, he's in this game, and he's there for 6 months, and he's now in Death March mode. So what that means is that it's like this ultra hard version of the game where he gets 1 life, and if he dies in the game, he dies in real life. Like the game system fries his brain. I had issues with that in book 1 because the setup doesn't seem to make sense to me, and it's not really needed in my opinion. But that's kind of the premise of the story. Like, so he's in this game, and at the end of book 1, one of the 3 people in his group takes off, controlled by this malevolent force, and so part of his goal is to save her, where she's been holding up in this keep. I think this is a good story. So not only in this book does the main character and his fledgling group had to fight off a band of higher level player character mercenaries, malevolent intelligence, but he also has to deal with the machinations of his crazy ex-girlfriend. And those are all interesting things, in that there's grinding and adventuring. There's also like conflicts on a interpersonal level, which I kind of liked. And so there are a lot of good storylines there. The mechanics are the same from book 1. And there is actually slightly more information about monsters and players, since one of the secondary characters has the ability to read like a level. So you actually get some more information about like monster names, monster levels, so you can kind of see the level gap between the main characters and the things that he's fighting. There's also an added castle building aspect, as the main character claims part of the keep, and as his goblin allies rebuild around him. One of the few complaints I have about the story is that the main character doesn't really earn any of the wins he gets over his higher level opponents, and that's kind of a theme in the story. In book 1, the main character starts at a level 1. He has some allies who are a little bit higher level him, I think like level 8, maybe level 9 or something. But in book 1, they're on a fairly regular basis fighting enemies that are like level 20, level 30, multiple enemies. And one of the big complaints I had about book 1 is that doesn't seem realistic, that nobody would ever die in those circumstances. I feel like the main character should have died at least once, but in the context of the story, he can't die, because then he dies in real life. So you always know that he's going to win. In book 2, the author decided to kind of overcome that power discrepancy between the main character and his opponents, essentially by tweaking him out. There's an outside force that gives the main character a bunch of powerful gear, and that's essentially what he uses to win all his fights. And to me, even though the fights are well described and they're well written, it's always to me it makes those fights less meaningful and less exciting when I know, the only reason the main character is kind of winning is because he has this super awesome like gear that's like 3 times his level. Like the main character, I believe he starts off at level 13 in the novel when he starts off. But his gear, there are no like level restrictions apparently in this game for gear. The gear is like meant for like higher end gear, like level 35, level 40 players would normally have this gear after questing for months and months to get these specific items and complete those quest lines. And he just kind of he's literally handed it to him. And to me, that's kind of the thing that oh man, he's not really gonna like earn any of that gear. She's not earning the fights then. And so for me, that kind of brought it down a little bit of my I would have liked it more, I should say, had that not occurred. But again, the author's trying to kind of ride his way out of a corner where it's like, the main character is going to be fighting level 40-ish people and level 50-ish people, or higher level people and groups of them. So how is he going to get around it? We'll give him some gear, which it happens in real MMO. So it's not like it's outside the realms of like normalcy. It just feels kind of like a cheat. Overall, though, it's a good story. There's good action, there's good RPG leveling, there's interesting builds, and there's some actually good resolution with that ex-girlfriend thing, which I was super happy to see, because to me, that was one of the points I was like, I wish I would have seen it more in book 1, because it seems like an interesting concept. And it is actually fulfilled in book 2, in that a lot of that emotional resolution with that ex-girlfriend thing is done very well, to be honest. So for me, it gets a score of 7.3 out of 10. I still had a good time with it, even despite the twinking that happens with the main character where he gets out that powerful gear. Because again, the action's good, the leveling's good, so still gets 7.3 out of 10 for me. Again, it would have gotten a better score if there weren't the issues there, but it is what it is. It's Nightmare Keep Euphoria Online, book number 2, with a score of 7.3 out of 10. There you go. Okay, on to Tales and Schemes, L, written by Adam Marich. I think so. It's hard to see, and it's, even in the picture, it's really faint. So I apologize to the author if I'm not saying your last name correctly. Okay, it is 509 pages, $2.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. This is a really long description. Good men beware. L is no hero. Some spun tales of his deeds benefiting one circle or another, but in the end, his actions benefit none but himself, for any particular occasion were his farce contributions something of substance. It would be nothing but a false, perpetual coincidence, hiding not but the blatant desires of chaos and depravity. Now, when it's read in advance, folks, that's one sentence. A lot of commas. There is no heroism in his dark deeds. To his twisted lies and fabricated truths, we have seen his kind before, have felt the typhoons they were born within. He, though, and through rather, to the smallest piece of his wretched blood cells is a lecherous entity which does not care for the world, his, ours, or the people that reside within him, if he even considers them to be so. My unreliable sources have shown otherwise. This is, oh my God, there's so much here. I mean, I'm not going to read the finish. There's literally about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 6 paragraphs for the novel description. And they're pretty chunky ones. Basically, there's a lot, and that's part of the issue why I didn't enjoy the story. This is such a wordy story, man. And for the page count, it's decently priced. 509 pages, $2.09. Available on Kindle Unlimited. Nice page count for the price point. But this thing is so wordy, dude. Like, the beginning of the story has just like such long-winded dialogue and such long-winded monologues that it drove me a little crazy. I mean, just to give you an example, like the first 35 pages are all for character creation, and it's because the main character is talking to the game AI, and just having these like conversations back and forth, and just like, and it's like literally 35 pages to make his first character, and it's super. To me, it's too much. And the rest of the novel suffers from similar issues. Anytime there's dialogue, it seems like it's like 5 pages for like one conversation that should really have been like 2 lines of sentence. And because the author he's a wordy writer, and that's fine. That's not a criticism myself. It's just that it makes the novel seem tedious to me, at least, to the reader. On the game mechanics side, it's fine. Nothing fancy there. The main character gets a unique race and unique title, and he gets to learn lots of skills from experimenting and killing stuff. But overall, there's not really a point to the story. The combat doesn't start till sometime about like after the 20% mark. There's just a ton of like dialogue and setup. That first 20%, which is about it. So you don't actually get to any fights really until like after like you're a good 100 pages into the novel, which for a lot of other stories would be like halfway through the story. This one, it's like a fifth, and it's just like it's take a really long time to get the action. But once there, the fights come a little more regularly. But again, even though the fights are actually pretty good, there's no really reason for them. Like, a lot of it just seems to be violence to level up, violence to improve your skills, or to learn new things, but there's really no other purpose behind it. Like, there's no like point to what the main character's doing. And for me, that just made all this seem kind of pointless. And again, story-wise, there's not really much of one, and there's some really dark scenes in the story, and it's kind of hinted in the novel description that this is not supposed to be a hero story. It's more not even supposed to be like a villain story necessarily, that is the main character just does dark things because of the voices in his head. And like I said, there's some good dark humor, there's some good fights, but again, because it seems so unpurposeful, if the story and the main character just seems like to meander around a little bit. And for me, I was just generally bored with the entire experience. So for me, it gets a score of 5 out of 10. Tales and schemes, it is LitRPG. The main character again does level, he does gain new experiences, and there's a good bit of information front loaded into the story about like mechanics and various races and classes and stuff. But again, it all just felt boring because there's no purpose or direction to it. So for me, it gets a score of 5 out of 10. Tales and Schemes L. There you go. Okay, on to our last review, A Demon Lord's Virtual Magic Life. Tutorial Zone, written by Nathan Valerio. It is 208 pages. It is $4.40. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. The price point on this is honestly a little bit too much for me, but it's available on Kindle Unlimited, so if you have the program. Here's the author's description. This is the story of 20-year-old Lucas Rowland. Orphaned at the young age of 10, his life is filled with struggles as a superhuman, a genetically enhanced human. Living in a life of poverty in the 23rd century, he could only barely sustain himself with his genetic difference compared to a normal human, and survived by gaining money in virtual reality to pay for his food and survival. Now, his final break came with a less than popular game, Magic Life, which featured a special auto character creation process. During the process, he ends up with the race Demon Lord and the class of the same name, following him as he plays in the virtual world that changed his life as the Demon Lord Akor, and he trains in the tutorial zone, facing countless choices in his magic life. So there we go. That doesn't tell you anything about the story. I mean, it tells you very little about the premise. Essentially, before I go on, I want to make sure I warn everybody. I like this story. I ended up liking it by the end of the novel, but there's some huge qualifiers about like why I liked it, and like there's a lot of things that other people are not going to enjoy about this, and they're more like technical issues. For example, there's like a lot of technical writing issues. There is an abundance of tables in the story, like in the first portion of this, like there's probably like one every page, and sometimes the tables will last like 2 or 3 pages in the story. There's also on a technical level mixed tenses, so like past and present tense will be in the same sentence or in the same paragraph. There are redundant sentences. There's a lot of misspelling or like slow, like things about there and there, like little things like that. And again, these issues aren't rare. They're kind of the normal thing. They appear at least once a page, basically. And I'm going to read you a couple examples. And if these examples bother you, you probably shouldn't read this because it's kind of going to drive you crazy. Here we are. Let's see. The first example is the current year was 2275, which, you know, so current is present, was is past tense. So like kind of pick one. Like it's either the current year is 2275 or the year was 2275. The next example is going to be they traveled to buy space travel. And so traveled is twice in there. It's redundant sentence and it's going to bug people. And again, those are probably the lightest examples of like some of the technical writing errors. And again, it happens again in the story. So if those things bother you, just because, again, no judgment, it's just they do for some people, just don't read this because it's going to drive you crazy. So just as a heads up, for me, eventually after about the 50% of the story, a lot of these issues get better. Like maybe the author did more editing, maybe his writing just improved. But there are fewer mistakes, and there's also fewer tables after about the 50% mark on the story. So just a heads up. Okay, this is a real-time strategy LitRPG story. It has base building, it has town development, it has resource management, it has tech trees, and minor amounts of group combat. Honestly, the combat's the smallest portion of the story. If you like games like Warcraft or Age of Empires, then you might actually enjoy this. And again, that's Warcraft, the strategy game, not the MMO, which is World of Warcraft. There are lots of passages in the story about like the thought process of the main character, how he decides to develop his own town. So there's actually a lot of good game theorizing in the story. So if you enjoy things like that, you're going to like this. But on the other side of that coin, real-time strategy games aren't exactly super amazing to watch. They're great to play. So if you're into that and you want to like see the details and things about the story, all that's here. But there are also the things about that kind of game system that are a little more tedious. For example, a good portion of the story is just like the main character giving out orders to his minions to do things like, oh, build a farm, build a house, go herd those sheep. And that's not exactly super exciting for everybody. But when you combine that with like, again, the unusual amount of like tables in the story and the early info dumps, a lot of the early story is going to feel tedious. Even for me, ultimately, I ended up liking the story, but in the beginning it was just like, oh, another table. And this is from somebody who's read and enjoyed like the last land book where there's a ton of tables. This one probably has more per page count. And again, you go read a sample, you're going to decide yourself really quickly whether or not you like it or not. And so those are the kind of the qualifiers. Like I understand that not everybody likes RTS games, not everybody likes a super amount of like tables like this, and some people can't get past like some of the technical writing issues, and all that's perfectly fine if that's the kind of reader you are. For me, it was enjoyable enough that I still liked it, and I can't help that. Or I should say, it kind of won me over by the end, at least, with like the game mechanics and the things that it does in the story. If you like a ton of detail about stories, like RTS games, like details about resource management, things about like building upgrades, like and seeing all the upgrades available, and tech trees for combat and for crafting and culture and so much more details, all that is here. And so if you're like one of the people who loves seeing and reading that kind of stuff, all that information is here for you. There are minions and the main characters, they level and they upgrade stats, which is where the RPG aspect comes into it. And it's regular through the story, so it is RPG. And there are actual tactics that the main character uses in the story, even using like managing XP. Like in the story, this is my early spoiler, the main character manages how much XP he's getting as a tactic to stop higher level players from like invading his city and then taking it over and killing them. He does this by essentially like staying under a certain level cap where he's in the tutorial zone and kind of expanding as much as possible while he's there. To give himself an advantage the moment he hits like level 5 or something, right? And it's really smart game theorizing, and it's honestly things like that kind of won me over, saying that this isn't a stupid story. This is a story where the main character thinks, and he's not combat crazy, even though there is combat, and he wins obviously for the most part. There's good tactical thinking. There's good like theorizing. There's good like planning out of how how he's going to advance his tech tree for his city, so that he's creating advantages now that he can use later. And so there's a lot of good things like that essentially kind of won me over despite those other issues. On the story side, again, the story mostly focuses on the RTS game aspects. And there are also some minor story threads that I think could be expanded very well into like some interesting storylines in there, including storylines about how the main character is trying to make a living using gaming, how the game company is vying for control with the AI over the game, how there are real life interactions between himself and other players. I think those are all like interesting notes. And again, there are a few fights in the story, like in the game side, and it's kind of enough to provide good breaks from the RTS, development stuff, which is like planning and scheming, and like also like, seeing what the other players are doing, and a bunch of other like tactical things. And it can get a little tedious, but thankfully, again, these breaks exist. Overall, again, if you can get past the many technical issues of the story and you like RTS games, I think you're going to enjoy the story. If you can't, if you don't like RTS games, don't read this. If you can't get past the technical writing issues, like the first couple paragraphs, don't read this, because it's going to drive you crazy and you're not going to have a good time. But if you can, you might find a story you enjoy. I ultimately did. So for me, it's a score of 7.1 out of 10. A Demon Lord's Virtual Magical Life Tutorial Zone. There you go, folks. That's it. That's the show. The end, almost. Thanks everybody for listening, for watching. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Patreon, and on our website at LitRPGPodcast.com. There are also some great groups on Facebook. We have a link in the show notes for all those things. And again, if you want to support the podcast in any way, shape, or form, because again, this show does not exist without your support. This thing costs money. So if you want to support us on Patreon, or just, when you use the links that we have in our show notes to buy these books or to buy something on Amazon, we get a few pennies per one of those purchases. So those are great ways to support the podcast without costing anything extra. You can find out all the ways to support the podcast at litrpgpodcast.com/support. And again, thanks for hanging out with me, ladies and gentlemen. And until we can hang out again, folks, remember to go read some LitRPG. Goodbye, everybody.